is Armed American Radio's Daily Defense.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense, because they don't want me to, that's why I do it.
Presented by the National Rifle Association. From the CZ Studios.
They're never going to stop us here.
Here is your host, the loudest conservative voice in America fighting the enemies of freedom, Mark Walters.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense begins right now here in the CZ Studios. Mark Walters filling your prescription for freedom every single day in front of the Patriot Mobile Communication and Command Center microphone at the Patriot Mobile Ranch. Of course, it's all brought to you, as you just heard in the intro, by the National Rifle Association. Greg in Dallas, Texas, how you doing today, my brother?
Well, not too bad. Here we are. It's Wednesday, top of the hill.
Gearing up for some gnarly weather coming up over here.
Oh, yeah.
In the next few days. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to get bad here, supposedly.
Yeah, Costco's are packed. Grocery store shelves are being depleted. Everybody's buying their bread and their milk.
And toilet paper.
And toilet paper, yeah. I guess that's a necessity, right?
I mean, it's not like you don't buy like a multi-pack when you go buy.
You do buy a multi-pack, but...
And how much do you plan on needing toilet paper for a couple of days?
Yeah, well, I guess we're fixing to find out, as it's coming. Hey, we're
live.
live.
Gonna hit the fan?
There you go.
That's why you need all the toilet paper.
Hold on, let me take a sip of my Celsius beverage. Hold on.
Oh, we're off the rails already.
Oh, good heavens, and spit it out of my face. Good heavens. Yeah, well, all right. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, we're live on Facebook for you today. Facebook.com/Armed American Radio. Greg's going to tell you where else you can watch the broadcast today. And then we will go to our guest, Cam Edwards. It promises to be a very power-packed and, let's just say, enlightening hour. Go for it, Greg.
Yeah, sure. Other places to watch the show are going to be YouTube. Just do a search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters. You can also head over to armedamericanradio.org or .com, hit that menu icon, then select your watch live or listen live option. You can also watch us on X at AARMark. And lastly, if you'd like to join our live chat, just download Telegram, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
That'll do it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go right to Cam Edwards, BearingArms.com, Cam and Company. He's in the car heading out to, I guess he's going to one of those big box store, Costco stores. How you doing, brother? Hey, you guys are right in the middle of that line.
Oh, man. It's ridiculous. So yesterday's forecast was like 20 inches of snow. That was bad enough. Now it's like 14 inches of snow with maybe a half inch of ice. So yeah, I'm doing a little bit of my last bit of storm prep. I started doing this a couple of days ago. And by the way, Mark, 80 rolls at a time in the Edwards household. That's how we roll.
Well, guys, I got to be fair here because Cam lives out in the country, okay? And a trip to Costco requires him. He's going to be he's driving to Costco while he's live on the air with me today. So it's not right next door. So Cam, I appreciate it, man. I know what you're going through up there. So we had fun on Cam and Company today. Let's start there because this will likely be somewhat of a repeat of that conversation. We'll throw a couple other topics into the mix here. But nonetheless, you've got your hands full there in Virginia. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about Rally Day. But let's start with this. The Supreme Court refused. We'll go to the Hawaii case as well, obviously. But the Supreme Court refused to hear about, 3 cases regarding felons' restoration of gun rights, didn't they?
Yeah, they denied cert, and it was actually more than 3. I think it was close to a dozen.
Yeah, it could be.
And these were all, for the most part, these were all 922 G1 challenges, right? So that's the ban on gun ownership for anybody convicted of a crime punishable by more than a year in prison. I'm somewhat surprised that they turned away all of those cases, but they did keep a hold of one, Mark, and it's Vincent versus Bondi.
Mm-hmm.
Melinda Vincent is the plaintiff's name. She, I think it was 17 years ago, wrote a bad check to buy groceries. She was a homeless drug addict at the time. Since then, she has turned her life around. She's now actually a drug and alcohol counselor, works in the state of Utah. She wants a firearm for self-defense. She would like to be able to teach her kids how to be safe and responsible gun owners, but because of this prohibition, she can't. I think it's interesting that the Supreme Court did not deny cert. They didn't grant cert. They just sort of held on to that case, right? I think there's a lot of speculation that, the Justice Department has proposed this process by which individuals can apply to have their rights restored. And the Solicitor General has been arguing to the Supreme Court, hey, you don't need to take these cases because that avenue is available to these individuals. Mm-hmm. So just let them, wait for this rule to go into effect. They can apply to have their rights restored. I don't know if the court has just decided to agree with G. Don Sauer's position, or if there's something, larger at work here where maybe Melinda Vincent's case will be remanded back down after Hamani's decided that's the case dealing with unlawful use of drugs. But I'm not surprised the court turned away these cases. I'm actually kind of surprised they held on to one of them.
Yeah, what's interesting, obviously something's in play, Cam, or they would have turned that down too. We just don't know what it is because we're not privy to what happens behind closed doors in conference. But if they, I tend to believe that clearly they want to look a little bit harder at this. And I think it might be her circumstances. It might be a little bit different. There's no violence involved here. Being a homeless drug addict, never a good combination, okay? But should that bar you for life from owning a firearm? Because we're not talking about violent felony. We're not talking about somebody that kneecapped somebody with a pistol or whacked them with a pipe, all right, during the commission of an armed robbery. We're talking about a homeless drug addict who was convicted of a felony that was nonviolent, who absolutely should have her rights restored. Now, it's interesting, though, because, the DOJ, as you and I've talked about before, as you just mentioned, has opened up that avenue now. And that would make me on the surface think, well, then they would have punted that case because that's why they would have punted it with it. But there's something else in play, or they would have done that, right?
I think so. Like I said, I think the key there is we don't know what's discussed behind closed doors. So, what it is that made them hang on to that case, at least for another week. I mean, listen, who knows? They could come out of their next orders list and Vincent's denied, right? We just don't really know. But I've got to think that, there's at least some consideration among the justices about, okay, well, are there special circumstances here? Does this warrant further review? Should we just hold on to this particular case? She wasn't the only case that had a nonviolent felony. Zerka versus Bondi, I think, was a case where I think his name is Salim Zika, was convicted of some type of fraud. But again, another nonviolent offense. I don't know if the facts of that case just weren't as compelling for the court, but it's worth. I mean, it's worth pondering, and I don't know when we're gonna figure out what the court's doing here. But I guess, like I said, it could be as early as next week if they deny cert. It could be 5 months from now when they issue their opinion in Hamani.
Yeah, guys will know if they're going to take it next Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll know. They're either going to punt it or they're going to keep it under review for conference yet again. I would like to believe in this case. I think I might maybe I'm right. I have a theory here. It could be possible that Ketanji Brown is the one holding this up and wants to review this again because she's looking. Well, no, that wouldn't make sense because Democrats can't define what a woman is. So I back off on that. I think I'm wrong on my assessment there. We could have some fun with that. But good heavens, with let's segue over to Hawaii. You and I talked about it today in great detail because they did hear oral arguments in the Hawaii case. That's the vampire rule. And I will admit this. I could never make the correlation. I guess I'm not a Bram Stoker fan. Stoker fan. There you go. See, I don't even know his name. That's Freudian slip, ladies and gentlemen. But the fact of the matter is I wasn't really clear on why they referred to it as that because I didn't know the history of vampires that had to ask permission and all that stuff. Anyway, we cleared that up yesterday. But this case, like you and I talked about on Cam and Company today, was slam dunk material. But was it? And I'll give my same prediction that I gave to you on Cam and Company today on the air because I think the outcome of the case might be different than others think about it. Or not the outcome, but well, maybe. We'll see. But your thoughts on Hawaii? You watched it, you read it, and you wrote about it in detail. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think we're looking at a 6-3 decision, striking down the vampire rule. You talk about Justice Jackson. I mean, she was intent in arguing that this was not even a Second Amendment case. This was just a case of basic property rights. And Justice Roberts kind of pointed out, no, that's not the case. A, we're not talking about the ability of a private property owner to ban firearms for the premises, right? That's unquestioned. The question is whether the state can make that decision for the private property owner and force the property owner to expressly allow concealed carry, to expressly allow a constitutionally protected practice, right? And then Sotomayor kept talking about, well, doesn't Hawaii have the the cultural tradition of banning firearms. So why should we take that cultural tradition into account here? Alan Beck, representing the plaintiffs, I think, pointed out on multiple occasions, the Supreme Court test is a national tradition. It's not a cultural tradition. It's not a regional tradition, not the tradition of one state. It's the national tradition. And Brett Kavanaugh kind of buttressed that by talking about that being deep-rooted, right? Widespread. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, when we come back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you another take on that as well, because the state used that historical tradition, or tried to use Bruin's historical tradition in their argument. We'll talk more about it with Cam Edwards from BearingArms.com and Cam and Company. Don't go away. We'll be back right after the break. Mics are live. The following segment of Armed American Radio is proudly being brought to you by the National Rifle Association. Help us defend freedom by visiting nra.org/AAR and join today. Welcome back to the show. Indeed, welcome back. National Rifle Association presenting the broadcast every single day, 6 days a week, ladies and gentlemen. Please help us at the National Rifle Association. We need you to join the NRA and get in this fight. The water is warm. We have to have you in this fight. If you live behind the blue wall, it is absolutely imperative that you join us and help us. We need the assistance. We've got to get the NRA back to where it was, and we're getting close. We're getting close, and many of you have, and I appreciate that very, very much. It's National Rifle Association, NRA.org/AAR, NRA.org/AAR, and take advantage of those discounts over there. If you happen to be tuning in out in Vegas, and many of you are, make sure to stop by the National Rifle Association booth. They've got a lot of really cool things going on out in Vegas at the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show this year. You can find them and all of our great partners in one simple portal, armedamericanradio.com or .org. Take your pick. We got them both covered for you. And click on all of them and support all of our great partners. Let's get back to Cam Edwards on the phone. Cam, welcome back in, brother. Thank you for being here. I know how busy you are today, and I appreciate it. I also appreciated being on Cam and Company with you today. Look, I'm going to give I
always love it, man.
Yeah, it's always fun. I'm going to give a little bit. It's not a different take. I just want to throw a couple things out. I got to thinking about this during the break. You know, the Supreme Court post-Bruen, particularly the last two sessions, I've lost count of how many Second Amendment cases have come before the court in conference. The biggest one, of course, being a quote-unquote, using their words, an assault weapons ban case. Could it be possible that they just didn't feel these cases, based on what the DOJ has said, by creating an avenue for people, that they didn't want to waste their time, and they keep the other one open right now because they want to take a closer look? Obviously, that's something in play. But could it be because they know they're going to be taking another huge case and they don't want to pack the docket with too many 2A cases when they could this be a sign that they're going to be taking one of the assault weapons cases sooner rather than later?
Well, I sure hope so.
I do too.
You know, they did hold on to. So you've got Duncan versus Bonner. That's a magazine ban case. You've got Villamontes versus Cook County, which is a ban on so-called assault weapons. They held on to both of those cases. They discussed them in conference last week. They did not deny cert, which is good, by the way, because if they deny cert in Duncan, that means that California's mag ban goes into effect in its entirety, and existing magazine owners will not be allowed to possess them. So I'm hoping that the Supreme Court keeps these cases until they take a hardware case. What case that might be, you know, you've got challenge to Connecticut's ban on so-called assault weapons and large capacity magazines, right? So that's coming up in conference, I believe, later this month. And then you've got the Seventh Circuit and the Third Circuit cases. We're still waiting on the opinions from those courts, but those cases likely to be appealed to the Supreme Court. So, you know, they've got any number of vehicles that they can use. Clearly, we're not going to hear one this term, right? I mean, even if they granted cert on Monday,
right,
I think now the way the calendar works, oral arguments would probably be held in the fall. But, you know, I hope that you're right, that is one of the factors in them either, you know, putting a lot of these cases on ice or denying cert altogether. There are a number of outstanding issues, right? You've got 5 cases dealing with the Second Amendment rights of adults under the age of 21 that the Supreme Court has held on to for several months now. And it's likely that, you know, at least some of these cases, they're hanging on after the decision in Wolford comes out, after the decision in Hamani comes out. They'll GBR some of these cases. They'll send them back down to the lower courts and say, you know, do it over and take into account what we just said here. But, you know, I don't know why they wouldn't do that for all of those G1 cases, or at least more than Melinda Vincent's, right? Again, it's just really tough to decipher, and it's been tough to decipher what this court is doing on Second Amendment issues. You know, they waited 8 years to take a case between, 12 years, between
12 years.
McDonald and Bruen, right? And then they take 2 cases this term. I think they're more open to addressing Second Amendment cases than we saw, you know, a decade ago. But they have so far been, you know, no pun intended, gun shy about dealing with some of the most significant issues that I think gun owners are facing right now. And again, banning the most popular rifle in the country, banning commonly owned arms, and states saying that they can do that without violating our rights.
And there's a number of factors in play. They could combine these. There's a lot of outcomes here, ladies and gentlemen. You could combine a hardware ban, along with like the Connecticut case. There's a lot in play. But we all know, and I have to tell you, they did just that with the GVR, with the Fourth Circuit case, and it didn't turn out too well when they refused to grant cert in that case, which we had lengthy conversations about. So, guys, there's just no way to know. The best we can do is come at it from an educated viewpoint because we follow these things for so many years and try to decipher what they're up to. That's the best we can ever do. Now, Kavanaugh gave us a hint because when it wasn't a hint, he basically told us we're going to take one of these cases in the next 2 sessions. And you're right. The way the calendar works, even if they were to grant cert, it's not going to be heard this session. It is likely going to be heard next session, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to get one. I expect that they'll take one before this session ends and then bring it up in the next session, which means we won't get a response on anything this summer. It'll be the following summer in 2027. But there's a lot happening. Now, I want to go back to Hawaii briefly, and I've got some viewer questions about Virginia, which is a topic we were going to discuss anyway. Hawaii, now, you and I differ on this. You believe the outcome of the case is likely going to be 6-3, correct?
I do.
I think you're right about that, but I want to stay an eternal optimist. And based on some of the lines of questioning, I will not be shocked, but I will. I won't, but I will, but I will, but I won't. You know where I'm going with that. I think it's possible that Kagan and Sotomayor, because of the courts just being loath to overturn their own precedent, which is very clear, dating back to Heller, McDonald, and in particular regarding Hawaii, the Bruin case, which this is resting on. Well, really more so Bruin and Heller combined, not as much McDonald. But I think it's possible that if you put their line of questioning aside, that they may side with the court's precedent. Ketanji Brown is a lost cause. I wouldn't be shocked to see 8-1. I really wouldn't. If it happened, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying I'm going to put money on it in Vegas, Cam, but it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. It would shock me. 8-1 would shock me. 7-2 would surprise me, and I think it's more likely that Elena Kagan would join the majority than Sotomayor. I get the feeling that we may actually see 2 dissents. Let's say it's 7-2. I think Jackson's going to write her own dissent, in which she's going to say this isn't a Second Amendment case at all. I'm curious to see if Sotomayor would write a dissent saying that the Bruin test is wrong, and by wanting to look only at a national tradition, that you have to look at the tradition of the people that have lived in these places, maybe even before it was a state. I don't know that she would go out on that limb, but I for sure. But I don't know that she'd sign on to Jackson's dissent either, right? So she may sort of be forced to go out on her own and explain her own reasons for saying no, if she does. Because I don't know that Jackson's going to get a whole lot of support from the liberal wing of the court that this has nothing to do with our right to keep and bear arms.
No, she's not going to get any support, and I hope that the liberal wing in the minority in this decision, and it will be the minority, ladies and gentlemen, Hawaii will lose this case. I hope they're foolish enough to allow her to write the dissent. We'll be back with Cam right after this. We're going to take you to Virginia and answer your questions, guys.
Yep.
Armed American Radio's Daily Defense is being brought to you by Patriot Mobile. Visit patriotmobile.com/AAR and use the AAR promo code to get free activation today. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. Time to take a sip of the Celsius. And this is that really crappy marshmallow one, Greg. You know, the one I was complaining about the other day?
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
It really is. And don't take a sip during the break. I did that intentionally just for you.
Yeah, of course you did.
Welcome back, guys. PatriotMobile.com. If you're watching on your devices or TV sets, this is a Patriot Mobile activated phone. You can do the same thing. And again, if you're in Vegas, check out the Patriot Mobile booth. They're the real deal. They were up at the Gundies. They presented. They sponsored. Patriot Mobile wears the Second Amendment on their sleeve, just like I do, right on their corporate mission statement at PatriotMobile.com/AAR. PatriotMobile.com/AAR. Proud to support your Second Amendment rights. I can promise you Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T do not have booths at the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show. Patriot Mobile does. Won't you please support them? We would appreciate it. They would appreciate it. You get great service. You saw what happened with Verizon last week. Nope. Patriot Mobile's got you covered. As long as there's towers up, you have cell service. And it's constantly switching, so you always get the strongest service no matter where you are. So you can trust that if you have children, they have service wherever they're at. And that's always nice to know. PatriotMobile.com. You can find them. You can also do some shopping over at budsgunshop.com, goatguns.com, Crossbreed Holster. We got you covered. ArmedAmericanRadio.com. Cam Edwards, welcome back. Drive into Costco to get some toilet paper and all the stuff you get at Costco when you need Costco for storm preparation, brother. Welcome back. All right, let's go over to Virginia. I got a couple questions here. And the first one from Angelfish2529. How did Lobby Day go? Angelfish2529, I'm going to tell you right now, it was incredibly disappointing. 2,000 people maximum. Now, Cam, you're in Virginia. You're familiar with what happened back during the COVID era and the 2020 deal where there were 50, 60,000 people and the media berated us and said, that's not true. They sent their little drones out on side streets to show maybe 5,000. We all know that was a bunch of BS. But this was disappointing, and I want to analyze that turnout. I think it's important that we look at what happened. Why was there 2,000 people? There's a couple options here that we spoke about today on Cam and Company on your show. Number one, and I think this one sadly might be the most likely. Gun owners in Virginia have said that's it. We're toast. They have a super majority. We can't do anything. I'm not taking myself to Richmond. I'll just fight from home. I'll join VCDL. I'll join NRA, Gun Owners of America. But it's just not worth my going out. And that reeks of it. The word we used was defeatism today on Cam and Company. And I kind of, the vast majority of my gut feel points me in that direction, Cam. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that probably is the attitude of a lot of Virginians, right? I mean, when you look 6 years ago when Democrats took complete control, it was, I think, a 2-seat majority in the House of Delegates. It was maybe a 1-vote majority in the state Senate, right? It was close. Mm-hmm. And there was a sense that, okay, if we can persuade, 1 or 2 rural Democrats to hold the line, then we can stop this gun ban bill. And don't forget, Ralph Northam, right after Democrats won statewide office and took back control of both chambers of the legislature, he said, we're going to pass a gun ban and we're going to get the guns, right? It wasn't even a grandfather clause. Right. So that put gun owners on high alert. I think the numbers of Democrats, as you said, a supermajority in the House of Delegates now, and frankly, even the rural Democrats, Creighton Deeds 6 years ago was one of those objecting to a ban on so-called assault weapons. He's writing a gun ban bill now, right?
If I'm not mistaken, Deeds wrote 2. If I'm not mistaken, Deeds has got 2 gun ban bills going on in the gun grabber bills, gun control bills. Am I right about that? I think he's got 2 he's sponsoring.
I think so. I know that he wrote the one that was approved and was vetoed by Governor Youngkin. And he's been, intimately involved in these discussions. So, we can't look to those rural Democrats to save us, unfortunately. And so I think that does harbor that belief that what's the point of showing up, right? I'll go to my county supervisor's meeting. At least I hope they're going to their county supervisor's meeting. But I'll get involved locally. But, it's not worth my time to go to Richmond. But I also think, too, that there are a number of gun owners who may not be aware of the threat because the Democrats learned their lesson from 6 years ago, right? Spanberger wasn't talking about we're going after these guns. She's been talking about we're going to make it affordability. That's the watchword. And then they introduced a bill to add $500 tax on the purchase of every suppressor, right? They want to make exercising your Second Amendment right as unaffordable as possible while they're talking about affordability. So a lot of these bills, unless you're paying attention to shows like yours, you're going to Ammo Land, you're going to Bearing Arms, you're a VCDL member, you may not be aware that a permit to purchase bill has been introduced. You may not be aware that a bill that would ban the possession of so-called assault weapons for adults under the age of 21 has been introduced. We know that some folks are paying attention because gun sales, from what I understand, are soaring right now in Virginia. But I think there are a lot of people who may not be, Second Amendment activists or even Second Amendment advocates. They're just gun owners. And they may still be absolutely clueless about the threat that is coming.
Boy, I hope you're wrong about that one. I really hope you're wrong about that one. And sadly, you may very well be right. The Democrats did learn a lot from 2020. And there are still more bills. What do we have? One more day for filing. Do you expect that?
23rd is the last day to file legislation.
So we have 2 days.
I haven't looked at the last time I took a look was last night, so I haven't seen if any bills got introduced today. We have not seen a Senate semi-auto ban bill. I think that's coming. Probably a Senate permit to purchase bill as well. It may look exactly like the House bills. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more than one semi-auto ban bill because I figured there'd be actually competing versions. But again, it's probably all being worked out by Democrat leadership in the legislature, right? Very carefully scripted as to what they're going to do. So I think we've seen the bulk of these bills, but I do expect a couple of late additions here before Friday's deadline.
Yeah, the other thing too, it's highly likely, as you alluded to when you were on the program last week, that the Democrats were waiting until after the rally turnout. I think if they saw 60, 70, 80, 100,000 people show up, they're probably salivating right now. We got them.
Listen, 2,000 people, well above what we've seen, in recent years. But as you say, nowhere near what we saw the last time we had this existential threat, where Democrats were in complete control of state government.
And that's what we needed. We needed that.
A 10th or a 20th, right? We did.
We needed it.
And we didn't get it. Although I will say, I think even maybe this is my defeatist attitude coming in. I think even if 50,000 people had shown up in downtown Richmond, I don't think it would have changed the Democratic agenda. I don't think it would have changed too many Democratic votes, if at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't have.
I think Democrats are feeling empowered right now.
Yeah.
They feel like, look, we swept. We have the biggest gains in the state House of Delegates in decades. I think they're feeling very emboldened right now. They feel like they've got a mandate.
Right.
Look what they're doing with redistricting, right? They're trying to go from a very competitive map. 4 years, by the way, after Virginia voters approved an amendment to the Constitution saying no politically gerrymandered maps. And now Democrats have changed their mind. Democrats were pushing for that amendment, by the way, until Glenn Youngkin got into office and Republicans had control of the legislature. They're so... 30. This is not a moderate move. This is not the moves of a party that is too afraid of tacking to the left. They are trying to turn Virginia in the next couple of years into California, into New York, into New Jersey. And that's what they're aiming for.
And ladies and gentlemen, they're likely going to be successful. And Cam, I appreciate. I sense your frustration. It's easy to get FCC unfriendly when you have this conversation. Let me take us to the break with this. When we come back, I'll answer another question that popped up on the chat. I spoke with Phil Van Cleve over at Virginia Citizens Defense League this morning. He said, Mark, thanks for being in this fight and joining VCDL. We estimate that we had around 2,000 show up at our rally, much more than the antis had at theirs. Would I like to have more? Should we have had more? Sure. The people who show up are quality more than quantity. Unfortunately, that's not going to do the job right now. We'll be back. One more segment with Cam. This segment is brought to you by Attorneys on Retainer. Get the only self-defense program for gun owners backed by a real law firm, the Attorneys for Freedom. Visit them online at attorneysonretainer.us. Welcome back. Yeah, guys, you hear me mention this every single day, and I'm going to mention it every single day. I could do hours and hours and hours of live radio about Attorneys on Retainer. When you're talking about a self-defense case, there is going to be an investigation. If you carry a gun, you had better have this in your wallet. I warn you every day. Do not be that person that said, clearly, I heard him talk about it. I need to make that call because it's too late. Now everything you own is on the line. Everything. Your entire future. Your freedom. Your financial future. Your families. Don't let that happen. All right? For under $500 a year, you've got an attorney. That's less. That's about half of a good attorney's 1 hour fee. All right. You know how many hours it's going to take? A lot more than the $500, less than $500 you will spend with Attorneys on Retainer. So please visit attorneysonretainer.us/AAR. Read the site. It's amazing. It's very well done. There's videos there. Watch the videos. Okay. It's enjoyable. You're going to learn a lot. And then sign up for $37 a month. You're going to save $25 off the sign-up fee over there by doing that, and you will sleep so much better at night, I promise you. My kids have it. I have it. My wife has it. My parents have it. Some of my neighbors, just about everybody I know now. This is the real deal. And on February 18th through the 23rd, I'll be out in Phoenix at their event, and I'll be broadcasting this show and the Sunday Monster Cast from the Mesa Convention Center and possibly the studios, the Patriot Salem studios on the Sunday show. Either way, we will, at the very least, be at the Attorneys on Retainer office, bringing you 2 days of live daily radio. Please visit them, join them, and all of our great partners at armedamericanradio.com. Cam Edwards, one more segment with you, brother. Welcome back, man. Thanks for being here. I know how busy you are. I'm going to be a little bit doing the same thing later, just a little bit later this afternoon as well. Just now, I'm not in as much dire straits.
Thanks for, I was going to say, man, thanks for keeping me company while I trick out the Costco.
Well, thanks for keeping us company. We love it. Okay, so we did Cam and Company today. When does it go up? Is it up already?
It is up already. Yeah, it generally goes up mid-afternoon, like 1 o'clock Eastern or so.
Okay, so guys, you can watch myself and Cam together having a great conversation as we always do on Cam and Company over at townhall.com. You can check it out at Bearing Arms. Make sure to do that. We always have a lot of fun together. Cam and I, to the two of us, fellow board members at the Citizens Committee, are not at SHOT Show this week, which is very unusual. And here we are. Does it feel strange to you, Cam?
It does feel a little strange. I have to say my feet are thanking me because, man, there is so much walking. I've been enjoying Costas Morris's posts on X. This is his first time at SHOT Show, and it's always fun to see somebody take it in for the very first time. But
it's overwhelming.
Back there next year, yeah, it really is. It really is. I've learned, it was easy when I was doing a show like Cam and Company, and that was all I had to do, right? I had to be in one place. I sat there for 3 hours. I had guests brought to me. Man, trying to cover SHOT Show for Bearing Arms and trying to write stories while you're trying to, walk the show, it's impossible. I still haven't figured out how I'm supposed to do it. So in that respect, I think my life is a little bit easier being at home this week. I can sit at my desk and, write my posts instead of trying to do 18 things at once.
Yeah, I guess with me, I guess I miss taking thousands of selfies, except I don't miss taking thousands of selfies. There's always that, but nonetheless, it is a weird feeling to not be there for the first time in 26 years. 26 years, man, it's crazy. That's okay. We'll likely be out there again next year, guys. But I really don't think you care where we bring you the show from, to be honest with you. We found that to be the case over the years. Cam, Virginia, gone, done. We agree, sadly.
Unless the courts save us, absolutely, yeah.
All right, and that's exactly where I was going with this, because that's what we're dependent on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, elections have consequences, and if we lose the elections like we did, and let's face facts, let's be honest, we lost the elections in Virginia overwhelmingly. So you did point out the real key here that the Democrats are taking to the bank. And I guess I can't say they can't, because they're acting as if they have a mandate. I'm going to guess they do have a mandate based on the overwhelming victory in Virginia. And I do want to point out that the Senate is still only a two-seat majority, but there is a different geopolitical layout in Virginia now than there was a number of years ago with the same two-seat majority, right? Because now we're not going to get anybody to flip like we just talked about Deeds. We could have, and the Democrats knew that. That's not going to be the case this time. So when you predict a Californication of Virginia, which I have already predicted and you have as well, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
What does it look like down the road?
I mean, I think you have to look at California. You have to look at New Jersey, right? These are states that have very low rates of gun ownership because people have decided it's not worth the hassle. I can't afford it, right? But we know that people who otherwise would be exercising their right to keep their arms are not because of the laws that are in place. And it's not because they're violent criminals. It's not because they're prohibited persons. It's because the law is so difficult to comply with that it's again, for a lot of people, it's just not going to be worth it. I think we're going to see Virginia gun owners move out of state. I have said that if it weren't for my youngest kids still being at home, I'd be looking at real estate in West Virginia right now. And I love where I live, Mark. I love it. I mean, I've got family buried there. Yeah. This was supposed to be my forever home. And I'm now thinking maybe it's not. And that's a sad, scary place to be.
That really is a sad, scary place. And you and I did touch on this on Cam and Company as well. I'm very well aware of some friends of mine. As you know, I have friends and family in Virginia on a long history, guys. And they have thrown their hands up. They said, I don't care anymore. I don't watch it. I don't pay any attention to him anymore. I'm going to live my life. They don't have the moral authority to tell me what to do. I'm not paying attention to anything that they do. I am living my life, period. And I think this is the red line has been drawn in Virginia. And I think many, many, many Virginians who can't leave or refuse to leave for whatever reason, I think that's their tack. That's the way they're tackling this, Cam. They have to.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I think that speaks to the importance of the Second Amendment sanctuary movement.
Yeah.
And, if you didn't show up at rally day, again, you got to show up at your county supervisors meeting. You got to talk to your county sheriff, your Commonwealth's attorney. You got to, demand that they take a stand in defense of our right to keep and bear arms. And they won't be able to stop every bad law. But they do have the ability to say, listen, we're not going to make, gun and magazine bans an enforcement priority, right? We're not going to go after somebody for simply possessing a firearm that they lawfully purchased. And as far as I know, there have been one, maybe two sheriffs that have drawn that line in the sand. We need to see dozens more stand up and speak out.
It's flat out not enough, Cam. All right, where can people find you, brother? We're getting ready to go, and I'll let you go do your shopping for your emergency supplies.
I am literally about to pull into the parking lot. BearingArms.com is the place. You can also find us on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, all the major podcast platforms, and the show. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Cam, for being here. Thank you for taking time out of what's a very busy day. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the invite this morning on Cam and Company. Guys, make sure to go watch Cam and Company today. You can find it at BearingArms.com. You can find it over at Town Hall. Cam Edwards is the real deal. I love having him on. Sadly, guys, he's right. Virginia is now reliant in the future, after this debacle is over in Virginia, and it's going to be years from now, on the court system to fix the problems that the Democrats are throwing at Virginia. And guys, the moral of the story is this is what they want for you if they ever gain the trifecta of power in Washington, D.C. Stay aware. Stay aware. Join the NRA and every other group. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow.
You just filled your prescription for freedom with Mark Walters, presented by the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association on the Armed American Radio Network.
All right, guys, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here today, and appreciate the comments. Angel Fish 2529. How many anti-gunners showed up? I don't have that number, but it was less than there were of us. But it really doesn't matter at this point. A very sad turnout as far as I'm concerned in Virginia. I would have liked to have seen that higher, but there's a part of me that understands why. You know, I guess it's like showing up in Sacramento. You can't do anything. They're not going to listen to you. Go about your business. And hopefully a lot of you in Virginia do that. Hopefully a lot of people in Virginia just throw your arms up and say, look, I'm going to live my life, and the hell with them. That's the position you've been forced into. Guys, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow. Jim Irvine will be here. Jim Irvine will be here for either the full hour or at least a half. That's already a done deal. Patriot Mobile is at the SHOT Show. We're going to see if we can get a representative from them on the floor to talk with us live from the SHOT Show, Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show booth, their booth at the SHOT Show in Vegas tomorrow. Either way, Jim Irvine will definitely be here. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. I'll see you on the radio tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there, guys.